All right, everyone, we're back with another episode of Coffee Combos Podcast, and we're in the studio today. So this is our first time in the Audio Boom studio.
And I feel so official.
I feel official. I'm actually going to press record. I'm going to press record on the screen.
Oh, wait, we're also doing
recording in progress.
Did y'all hear that?
We're doing a video.
Yes, we're doing a video. We have it on Zoom. We'll be able to see it on probably Instagram. And we have some guests that we're going to include in a little while for a little PCOS update and conversation. So before we get there, let's talk.
So my travel was good into New York. I was scared and shocked. Like, I knew that a lot of people had told me prior, weeks before when we were originally planning this, I was told that you would have to quarantine for like 5 days whenever you got here. And I was like, wait.
I'm not even going to be there for 5 days.
I'm not even going to be there for 5 days. Like, what am I supposed
to do?
And then I started looking up all these things. So apparently that was lifted. But you do have to fill out this, and you're kind of blindly filling it out. Like, you're filling it out to the best of your knowledge. You know, like, you haven't been in contact. You haven't been in certain states, so on and so forth. But then they actually send you like this follow-up thing to say that you've passed like all the COVID protocols and that you're not required a quarantine. So like when you're answering these questions, honestly, they don't tell you that they're going to send, that you're being basically vetted for quarantine.
Wow.
So when I landed, I got my thing and it was like, you don't have to quarantine. I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh my gosh.
What if I got here and it was like, Lindsay, excuse me, ma'am, but you're required to quarantine for 5 days? I would be like, oh, okay, trip's canceled, I'm going home.
Right. Because at that point, it's like you don't have time to be doing that. I need to check to see what all the protocol is because I'm traveling in July. Well, actually, we're going to California next month.
Yeah.
So we should probably check on all the protocol for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll update you because, you know, I'll be checking. But then I was up late because I was just like laying by myself.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep early, actually, watching Law & Order. And then I was like, well, I'm going to go on TikTok because, you know, we all know, like, the TikTok rabbit hole.
Right.
And then I got into this TikTok rabbit hole, and I found that interesting TikTok that I sent you. And I was like, okay, obviously, like, this is something we have to cover on Coffee Combos because it's just too interesting. And I also want everybody's opinions on this because I feel like before Kail got opinions of other people on this TikTok, I thought it would be more of like a 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been.
No,
so
I'm going to play it actually on my phone. And if it doesn't record well, we can just try to find the audio some other way. But I'm going to play it for you guys. So listen carefully.
What if a 15-year-old girl gets hold of her older sister's ID, who's 18,
yes, good
and gains entry into a licensed premises, onto a pub? She looks 18.
15-year-olds look 18 nowadays.
They can do. So let's say, hypothetically, that young girl meets an 18-year-old guy. They're getting on really well. She lies to him about her age. They go back to her place at her invitation and they engage in sexual intercourse that she's quite okay with. The girl's mum or dad walks in and catches them. My daughter's in year 10. He's going, well, hang on.
Yeah.
I met her at the pub. So let's say the police get called. Using pure numbers, we've got an issue here, haven't we? Once the police discover that this young girl used false ID to get into licensed premises, under any reasonable test she looks to be 18, she told the boy she was 18, then the question is, was it reasonable for him to assume that she was over 16? Yes, because of where they met, how she presented, what she said.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't read the comments in TikTok because, you know, that's like a whole nother rabbit hole, getting into the comments on there.
Yes.
But basically how I feel about it is that she was somewhere that she shouldn't have been.
Right.
And she lied to gain entry to that place.
Right.
And then she meets someone knowing that she lied to get there. And every other person that was there, we're going to assume didn't lie.
Right.
Because they're 18 or older. She's automatically putting herself in a compromising situation going into it. That's why there are age limits for things. So then she, it seems, pursues him, wants to have sex with him. It's safe for him to assume.
Yes. I would say in that situation, yeah, it is safe for him to assume that she's old enough.
Because he would be assuming that she wouldn't be using a fake ID or whatever to gain entry to a place that she wasn't supposed to be at.
I feel really bad for him. I think the question then becomes, yes, maybe she lied about her age and she used her sister's ID and she gets into this, place. But now he has to he has the burden of proof that she consented to the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's two separate things. Like, yeah, maybe she lied. Yeah, maybe he shouldn't have assumed. Like, should he have checked her ID? I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think this all falls on her. I really don't feel like it falls on him.
You said earlier, you were like, I mean, when we start getting in rabbit holes like this, it's like, do you check the birth certificate?
Right. Are we asking for a birth certificate at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think.
Or do we need written consent at this point to prove, you know what I'm saying? Like what is it called? The system, like when you tell the truth, like the honor
honesty,
system.
Yeah. Like the honesty is the best policy.
But like the honor system, when
yeah.
you're supposed to go by your word, like if we're not trusting that anymore, I guess we should be carrying copies of our birth certificates and also be handwriting consent for sex because.
But then this brings me back to another point that kind of ties into this, that I don't believe in random hookups or one night stands. So,
but that not everybody feels the same.
Feels that way, so I can't judge this person
based on that.
But I'm just saying, in me as a person,
right?
I don't do that, haven't done that, so I think that I don't know. I would kind of like want to fully vet somebody, make sure they're not a psychopath, and like.
I think the hookup culture definitely that creates a bigger margin for error.
Yes, I agree.
And so. That's one of those things where it's like hookup culture and those things happening, I feel like not go hand in hand, but it becomes more likely.
I think so, yeah.
Where like if you're spending time before the hookup or whatever, and I don't think that's realistic for a lot of people, but in a perfect world, you're spending time with this person before it comes to sex, and so you're able to, vet further like what this looks like.
Correct.
But yeah, we would be curious to see what everyone's thoughts are on that because personally, I feel like it is on the girl at that point. She knew what she was doing. I actually asked a couple of my friends and they both are girl moms and they said that it falls on, if that was their daughter, it would fall on them. So as girl moms, they did feel like it fell on their daughter for lying.
But it was weird because I thought the girl moms that you were going to ask
would say the opposite.
But both of them said that they would be so pissed at their daughter.
I haven't played these two audios yet, so should I play them?
Yeah, play them.
If there's threats, we're going to take them out.
I mean, I agree with it. What is a guy supposed to do? He can't, what is he going to, ask for a birth certificate before he has sex with someone? If she looks 18, if she had an ID in a place where she could only get to if she was 18, then that's really not his fault at all. And as a mother, I'd beat my daughter's ass for that.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Okay. That's the third person that said that. So I'm just saying they literally all three said the same thing. But that's that was our take on the TikTok.
I just want to know what people think. And I guess I was proven wrong. Like very, very quickly before this episode even drops. So moving on from this, we are going to have a guest on the podcast, and I think Kail's already recorded with them before.
The podcast is called A Cyster and Her Mister. It's a couple, a PCOS dietitian and a PCOS personal trainer. And I just had a really, really good conversation with them last week about PCOS, and I know a ton of our listeners have had questions and written into my Instagram about it. So I thought we would have them on Coffee Combos and, kind of open up a conversation on here. So I'm going to let them in the room. We've never done it this way. So
bear with us.
Hi, how are you? I am so sorry for the wait. We are recording from the studio today, and we've never actually recorded in here. And so we don't know what we're doing. We've never done this on Zoom. So this is Lindsay.
Hi.
Hi, Lindsay. Nice
How
to
are
meet
you? A sister and her mister.
I love that.
That's right.
So before we get started, I was just telling Lindsay that I came on your podcast last week and we were having a really good conversation just about PCOS and everything. And so a ton of our followers and listeners wrote into the podcast when I posted that we were recording with you guys today. And so I don't know where you guys want to start. I'm kind of open to wherever, but I do have a ton of questions from people about PCOS and like how they should manage it, I guess. So maybe we can start with one of the questions and then go from there. I'm sure we'll segue into something else pretty organically. So
Definitely.
Good.
okay, so one of the questions that I got on here is, will getting off the pill negatively affect your PCOS?
So getting off of birth control actually can kind of make your PCOS manifest. So sometimes before you get on birth control, you already have PCOS. And then you get on birth control, it kind of suppresses your symptoms. Then you get off birth control and they come back with a vengeance if you haven't done anything to support your metabolic function during that time that you were on birth control. So that's what can happen. Also, even if you don't have PCOS before birth control, if you get on the pill and then off the pill, you can have PCOS like temporarily afterwards because you're having trouble ovulating. And that's the fundamental issue with PCOS when you're not able to ovulate.
Yeah. And also, and the birth control can also have like a snowball effect. For example, when you go on birth control, it's synthetic hormones and it's giving you a fake bleed. So what many people think they're actually getting their periods on birth control, but it's not a real period. So when you get off of birth control, the symptoms that you may have had before can be somewhat worse. But it doesn't mean that you have to be scared about getting off, because while you're on birth control, you can still manage your diet, your lifestyle, so that when you do get off, everything can be on track.
Got it. Okay. So I think I told you guys last week for the egg retrieval stuff that I was doing, they do have to put me on birth control for a short time. So what does that look like?
I haven't studied the egg retrieval process, but are you asking me why they're putting you on birth control?
No, I guess just the effects of going on it and then coming off in such a short time frame.
Oh, I see.
Like, I wonder what that would look like.
It's different for everyone. Like sometimes it's fine. Some people are totally fine with it and their body just bounces back.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's not fine. And especially for women who take it for a long period of time, which is so common from like 16 to like 30.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's when it really just, you have no idea like what's going on underneath because you've suppressed everything for so many years.
Yeah, if anything, you might want to make sure you're not losing any nutrients, because birth control, one of the side effects that it can strip you of essential nutrients in the body. So just being on top of that can ensure
While you take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been on birth control since I was like 16 years old.
Me neither. Well, no, I'm lying. I had an IUD after my first son.
So I don't really know a ton. I mean, I just know that I don't like the hormones. I don't like all of like the stuff that comes along with it. But also, I don't want to sit here and advocate and be like people shouldn't be on birth control.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not for me. So I could definitely see where all of this would come into play.
Yeah. There's actually a great book called Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Brighton. The book is all about birth control and how you can get off of it, but also how you can manage your symptoms while on birth control. So it's a really great book if anyone who is on birth control or is deciding if they should go off or not. It's a great educational book.
Thank you.
Because sometimes birth control can be an option for people. Like, I don't like to say, like, never take it, it's bad, whatever, because sometimes your symptoms can be so bad that, you know, you'll take what your doctor tells you to take to help relieve you of those symptoms.
Yeah.
But every pill, in my opinion, should have an exit plan. So even if you take birth control, or if you take Accutane for your acne, or you're on metformin for your blood sugar, while you're on it, there should be some type of exit plan where you're really managing your lifestyle and getting your getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, I just want to note one thing too is, I don't know if you guys know the history of birth control, but it's kind of dark.
Let's hear it. If you know it, let's hear it.
Wait, tell us everything about it.
Yeah.
We learned some of this from Dr. Jolene Brighton herself, but basically birth control was originally part of like a eugenics program to basically stop population growth, and they were focusing more on women at the time because, of course, the people running the companies were men. They didn't want to do things towards men, so they were really focusing on women. The second thing is that birth control, when the studies were done in the, I believe like in the 1950s or so, the studies were done predominantly on women who were young, around 18 years old, and who were already healthy. So the studies weren't done on women, for example, who had PCOS or other underlying conditions. So the results, all those things that we see, doesn't really relate to people who may have PCOS or other underlying issues.
Okay, so that makes sense. So there's not a whole lot of, I guess, information, especially with PCOS kind of presenting itself differently in so many people. There's no real way to say, like, this is kind of the end-all, be-all for what it is with women and PCOS with birth control.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing. There's like no research
Yeah,
about
it's all
PCOS,
unhealthy.
taking birth control. Like, this can actually help you.
Got it. Okay. I was telling Lindsay whenever we were talking before or last week on your podcast how that was the first thing that my doctor said was, we'll get you on the pill. And I just didn't feel like that was really getting to the root of the problem. But I do love what you said about having kind of like an exit plan or like an expiration date. And I had said when I first found out I had PCOS and I was going to do metformin, I was like, this is just a starting point. I'm not doing this for long term. Like, this would just be something I'm going to try. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it helps me, at least get my diet in order, because I know it doesn't mix well with carbs.
Yeah.
Like, kind of just having a starting point, because I was so overwhelmed with information. But I had to take myself off, like I told you guys last week. Like, I just, it's not for me.
I love that mindset because I'm definitely, I'm not a huge advocate for medication. Like, even when I'm sick, I try my best to like let a cold run its course before I try to take anything. Mm-hmm. And so I think that a lot of people, and with pharmaceuticals, that it is just overly preached. Like, you can take this medicine and it'll be better, but there is no real preaching on how to get off of medication and, just say, okay, I'm just using this to temporarily help me get to the root of the problem, fix whatever I need to fix, and then move on from this. It's just, okay, well, I'm just going to go on this medication for a lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just that it can be more difficult to get to the root cause and the underlying issues. So that's why I think doctors are so easy to just hand over the medications and prescriptions, because they know it can be like a quote-unquote quick fix.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Actually, someone messaged me and said that they take Ovasitol, which you guys told me about last week. She said she's on her 3rd month and she got her period for the first time since November. So that's really awesome.
How exciting.
I thought you guys would be happy to hear that.
I love those messages.
Yeah, that's so nice. Someone said, what are some unusual symptoms? They're struggling to get pregnant and starting fertility tests, so she just wants to educate herself. Unusual symptoms, I feel like everything is pretty generic when you Google or whatever, so I don't know what unusual symptoms would be.
Sometimes, like, if you have ovarian cysts, you'll feel a little bit of pain in your ovaries, like cramping a little bit, like before they rupture sometimes. I personally had a ruptured ovarian cyst and I was having trouble peeing, like going to the bathroom for a while. And then it ruptured and I realized it was pushing on the bladder.
Got it.
I mean,
okay.
That's what the nurse said. So
I think Kail thinks that she had a ruptured cyst too.
I'm pretty sure. This is maybe TMI, so I apologize. But I was at the gym and I felt like pain. And then when I went to the bathroom later, it was just clear liquid.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what it was.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Said it was like a sharp.
Yeah, it was like a super sharp pain on my side. And then, but it wasn't like I was like doubling over, like not like that. It was just like sharp pain. So that was the first time I really knew, that I had cysts, I guess.
Yeah, it just depends how big it is. Sometimes they're not as big and you can like withstand the pain for however long and then it goes away. And then sometimes they're big and they rupture and you have to go to the hospital because you think you're dying.
Right,
which
right.
is what happened to me.
So let me see what other questions. Foods to avoid. I know we touched on it on your podcast, but I do want to tell our listeners too about like gluten-free and dairy-free. Because I had told Lindsay when we originally podcasted that I was going to try, like I told you guys, to go vegan or vegetarian. and that's probably not a good look for me. So I want to just go over
Actually,
that.
someone wrote in and said that, because I think I had said that you need a nutritionist or something, and someone wrote in and said there's a difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian. And so can you walk us through the differences of a nutritionist and a dietitian and what the benefits are for having that with someone who is struggling with PCOS?
Yeah. There's a lot of nutritionists out there, and some of them are really informed and really keep up with research. And, some of them I'm not sure. So, but you don't necessarily need to pass and get a license to call yourself a nutritionist. Like, you could just study nutrition and say that. As a registered dietitian, you'd have to do rotations in a hospital, get all of the credits you need, and then you qualify to take the exam, and then you sit and you take the exam, and then you can get your license. And now they're requiring master's degrees, and it's like a whole process. I think it took me 8 years, the whole college to the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I think whereas a nutritionist, they can either go to a certified program, or I think get a nutrition degree, I believe.
You can do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And what are the benefits of someone that would be newly diagnosed with PCOS or someone that just can't? I know Kail's had a bit of an issue managing it and feeling a bit overwhelmed. What would be the benefits of having a dietitian help you?
Well, going through a lifestyle change takes time and patience, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's easy to fall off the wagon. And going to a dietitian maybe once a week, maybe every few weeks, can help you stay on track and can help you stay informed on all of the different things that you have to do to manage PCOS, because you don't want to do them all. If you Google something and you get what to do with PCOS. Now you have a list of 30 things. Are you going to wake up the next day and perfectly do them all? No. So when you have a dietitian, they kind of hold your hand through it, explaining things step by step, and introducing things when you're prepared to do them. So, you can go gluten and dairy free all at once, the next day if you want to, if you feel like you can do that. And sometimes people would prefer to have a registered dietitian show them how to go gluten-free first and how to cook from home, what they should cook, plan the meals out, how you can eat out, things like that, and then introduce them to dairy-free when they're ready, and slowly incorporate these lifestyle changes into their life and eventually reverse PCOS.
So this is basically, the way I'm hearing you say this, it's therapy for
yes,
for your diet,
for your diet,
for your gut
versus your mental health.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's mental. Sometimes you're talking about mental, emotional triggers with food, things like this, instead of planning your diet for the week. It's multifaceted.
So was Kail wrong in saying that she was going to go vegetarian or vegan? Is that not what she's doing?
Well, so when we talked before, basically by me going vegan, I'm cutting out a large portion of where I would get my protein sources. And yes, I can get protein from other places, but it's, correct me if I'm wrong, this is just based on our last episode. It would be a less amount of protein and more sugar or carbohydrate, which is kind of counterproductive.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I eat so much chicken, I don't know that it would last very long for me.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Being plant-based is a great idea.
Yeah.
Generally eating more greens and really umping up the volume of vegetables on your plate, and then having 3 ounces of chicken or 4 ounces of chicken, a moderate portion, that's good too. Vegan can work for some people, but I've seen that it is very triggering for blood sugar issues with PCOS.
Yeah, because of the carbs, right? Just like Kail was saying.
You have beans, yeah.
Yeah, your only resources for protein in most cases are going to contain carbs, so it's very hard to have a high protein to carb ratio for that reason.
Before we move on to the next question, Mister, can I ask you how you got involved, and so knowledgeable about this? Was it just the support system for the Cyster, or?
Yeah, it started as being just supportive for my wife, Tallene, and then eventually I was already a personal trainer, so I started to focus more on helping her and women with PCOS. And just like a year ago, because my regular job was an engineer, so I was doing my full-time job, and then I started to help Tallene. I was starting to help her record filming like TikToks and Instagrams and things like that, doing lives together. And the whole time I was just absorbing the information, absorbing, and then I was regurgitating, and just like I always get that wrong.
Regurgitating.
We know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And after all the repeating and just like trying to help others, I started to get more and more knowledgeable. Then I started to read books like PCOS, SOS, and other books. And now I'm basically just full time with her. I quit my job, and
he started the podcast before he quit his job. So he started the podcast, and then as we interviewed people, we learned more from doctors, things like that. He just like absorbed it all like a sponge, and then quit his job.
It probably makes it so much easier for you because you have such a strong support like within your house every single day. And I think that probably a lot of women probably don't have that.
Well, I mean, even for me at home, right? Like if I had someone to kind of help or not hold me accountable, but I mean, I already have an unhealthy relationship with food. So in that way, I mean, hold me accountable, but kind of keep me in order and help with like the food process, because that is the hardest part for me. And I told you guys last week, like I thoroughly believe if you change what you eat, like you can reverse a lot of these symptoms, but that's just been the hardest part for me. And then I could, work on if I had a partner or someone even close to me nearby help me with like the workouts and the kind of like what to do, that would be amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, especially someone who's like easy to understand, right? Because of course, like your partner, whoever, maybe they can't know everything or they can't like give you all the answers. But the most important thing is to be understanding of your decisions, of your day-to-day actions, so that you don't feel like there's a pressure on your back. So yeah, just like you said, it can be really helpful just to have someone there help you through the diet or the workouts or whichever.
Yeah, I love that. I do have a question since we're called Coffee Combos Podcast. Do I need to give up coffee?
Okay. I thought of that when I saw your podcast name. I was like, oh shoot. I have to tell her.
You're going to say yes, aren't you?
Don't say
Let me
that.
take a sip of mine.
I would slowly cut out caffeine and just see how that impacts your emotional health, anxiety, your feeling towards food. Just see how you feel. Just try. Because I'm not saying coffee is like bad and you should never have it, but when you depend on it for energy, it's an external factor that's giving you energy. Like the question is like, why don't you have the energy, right? And so you want to work on getting that energy back, whether it's through diet, whether it's through getting better sleep, quality sleep. Caffeine can really impact that and make it worse, make the cycle worse. When you think it's actually helping you by giving you energy, it can spike your cortisol, make your stress hormones higher throughout the day,
right.
that makes people gain weight, without even realizing it, because you have cortisol dysregulation and then it impacts your sleep. And then when you don't get good sleep, it impacts your blood sugar and the cycle goes on.
Yeah.
I think
for
that's
example,
relevant.
if you're drinking, sorry.
No, I was
going to drinking.
Oh, go ahead. Go, mister.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, like, if you're drinking a cup of coffee or maybe 2 cups of coffee in a row and you're feeling like jittery, like you're having like almost like a panic attack, that's like a really good sign that your cortisol is being spiked and that it may be impacting you negatively. So, but like Tallene said, you don't have to completely cut it out. Just start to reduce your caffeine intake little by little and then see if it's helping. And if you love the taste of coffee like I do, then you can always go for the decaf option. Which,
Put some coconut milk in it.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe we could do like a PCOS friendly cup of coffee. Like we need to maybe come up with your help. We could post something that's like I don't know, like decaf
I think that's relevant to everyone. Like even
in without PCOS.
Even without
really.
PCOS.
Right.
Because I think that's just true in general. I think about what I've had today.
Right.
I'm like, I've had a Coke, I've had a coffee.
I even cut it out.
I literally just joked with my friend the other day about having 4 cups of coffee, but I never. And I made the joke that I had 1 for each of my kids. But I guess, like, just in general, like, we get so caught up in, like, just needing coffee and not really thinking about the sleep and all of that. I had the worst night of sleep last night that I've had in a long time, and I had no kids here. I did not have an early call time. I had my curtains completely shut in my hotel. Like, it was truly set up to be like best case scenario, and it was horrible. And I was like, and then I'm stressed out because I can't sleep. Or I know tonight I'm going to be stressed out because it's like, well, if I have the same amount of sleep as I did last night and I have to work at,
6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m. I have a call time. Like, what am I? How does that look? I think that for our listeners too, we could maybe go through like kind of the flow chart of what we discussed last week about cortisol and carbs and pretty much everything.
Because it's relevant to even people who
without
don't
PCOS,
have PCOS. True. I mean, it's still relevant, and I think society kind of sets us up for failure. Honestly,
it does.
Lifestyle, and the go, and then your health pretty much is just kind of like on the back burner. Like for Kail, I know she said that she felt so overwhelmed with having the PCOS diagnosis and feeling like she needed to incorporate all of these lifestyle changes within her life, but continue her life as if she was living without PCOS or anything going on. So I think this is relevant to everyone.
It's been hard. I really, really resonated with your post the other day about this is not being like lazy and just tired all the time. But sometimes I feel like in my head, I'm like, I'm not doing enough. Like I never think about it being PCOS, why I'm so tired. I literally think to myself, I'm being so freaking lazy and I hate myself. And I never connected the dots. Ever. Yeah. Like I never was like, wow, my cortisol is high. I'm not sleeping. I have 4 kids. I have a crazy lifestyle and I'm drinking caffeine, which is probably also spiking my cortisol. Like I never connected the dots.
So what's this flow chart? Explain.
I mean, all of those factors contribute. Like having kids, exactly what you said, having kids, a crazy schedule, early call times, lots of pressure on your shoulders, like even like the mental part of it can trigger the cortisol spike. And so it's supposed
No, I was going to say, you said something about, I couldn't really explain it to Lindsay because I kind of forgot, but it was like the workouts or the energy backfiring because your cortisol is high and you can't go to sleep or something like that. Can you explain that again?
Yeah. I can kind of dwell on that. So one thing to know is that when we wake up in the morning, like everyone, male or female or PCOS or not PCOS, when you wake up in the when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol is at an all-time high because you're supposed to have energy in the morning. And then as you eat your breakfast and you go throughout your day, the cortisol starts to come down. And by the time it gets to evening, your cortisol is low and your melatonin is high and you're supposed to fall asleep. But when you go throughout your day, if you're having like stressful impact, like for example, coffee or working out, your cortisol may spike. Especially for women with PCOS, this is really important because there's something called cortisol dysregulation, meaning that you're not able to regulate your cortisol levels compared to someone that doesn't have PCOS. So, for example, when your cortisol spikes, it doesn't come back down sometimes for days. And when you do intense workouts, this can really have an impact on that because intense workouts, 1, they have an impact on your insulin, 2, they have an impact on your cortisol. And basically it's creating this
cycle.
Yes, exactly. A cycle where you're not able to now go to sleep and you don't get good sleep. The next day you wake up, you don't feel good, you feel fatigued, and then it just continues and continues.
Get some coffee, do a crazy workout, burn some calories, feel accomplished for a second, crash again.
Yeah.
The cycle
Sounds
continues.
like my life. You're explaining me.
And she doesn't have PCOS.
And I don't have PCOS.
I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we can glide through the day in a calm and collected fashion, get lots of things done, get good sleep, and feel refreshed, and start over the next day.
Can you teach us and our listeners, can you be our mentors?
Honestly.
Like our life mentors, how to skate through life, skating through unstressed.
I would just love to be able to wake up and have a day where I'm not tired all day. That's what I would love.
Sure.
Just not being tired.
Can.
Like, because I think every day
with
kids and schedules, like it's normal to be some level of tired. But like I'm talking like full on by 3 o'clock, I'm barely keeping my eyes open. I would love to have a day without that. So and it's hard because I'm in New York this week and I go home Thursday and I'm thinking to myself, okay, when I get home, I'll start. Okay, but then when I get home, we're going to California in 2 weeks. Well, what am I supposed to do while I'm in California? You know what I mean? Like that is the hardest part, is really getting a hold and a grip on these lifestyle changes while I'm on the move.
And I think a lot of people probably struggle with that, whether it's PCOS or just like general weight loss or, you know, any type of issue of just trying to fit something in your schedule. And like, how do you make it work? And how do you make lifestyle changes? I guess it's like not realistic to do something overnight.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you guys are saying. Like it's a progression.
I think thinking about it all at once can be really intimidating. Like, you want to make all these changes, but you're going to California and you're going to fly. And what are you going to eat while you're flying? And this, that, and the kids. And what are the kids going to eat if I eat this? There's like so many things that you think about when you think of the whole picture at once. But I think it's a better step if you just think of what you're going to eat next. Like, stay present and think of what you're doing today, right now first. Yes. Like, what do you have planned for lunch? How can you make it, if you want, gluten and dairy free? How can you make it PCOS friendly? Just start with that one meal. Mm-hmm. And, you know, are you going out to dinner? Then, you know, what can you order on the menu that is, you know, good for your PCOS? Things like that, even that is a big step. Like, you'd be surprised in how much of an impact that can make, because now you feel confident. And now the next thing that you eat, you're going to feel more confident about, and you're going to continue, and you're going to be proud of yourself. And that confidence is just going to push you and drive you. And you don't have to have everything planned out at once. You don't have to have all your meals planned for California in 2 weeks. You know,
Right.
You'll figure it out when you get there. But you have to treat every meal as a learning experience. Like right now, like, oh, you know, they're going to, for example, like if they're going to order lunch for you, okay, well, maybe you can adjust what they're going to order, like last minute, or maybe you can plan for tomorrow's meal to make sure that tomorrow is something that's gluten and dairy free. You know, taking it one step at a time.
So you do not recommend us doing a pizza tour while we're here?
Oh, but this has been planned.
You
guys, this is, in fairness, this has been planned before PCOS, before we knew about it.
Do the pizza tour, and for the rest of the time, do your best to be gluten and dairy free. And that's better than nothing, right?
Right.
And I mean, you're there. You might as well enjoy yourself.
That's the struggle.
That's the struggle. And I think
maybe they'll have, is there gluten-free pizza? Because I feel like I can
sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I could find that and do a tour.
One bite, you know the rule.
Review.
This sucks.
It might not. I actually I thought gluten was in everything.
I feel
thought
like
it was in
is.
every
Literally,
single
it
thing.
makes me so overwhelmed.
Right.
Like,
I told her when I Googled, I was like, oh, wow, I don't, everything has gluten.
and I think that that's probably a problem for people just general dieting or trying to cut gluten out of their, you know, diet. I think people get so overwhelmed by trying to think about the things that they could possibly have that it's just like, okay, well, fuck it, I'll just have the gluten.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps too when you really understand like what's happening with gluten, like, or the reasons behind it.
Let's jump into the science.
Yeah. So there's actually, for anyone wondering, we like to classify PCOS with 4 different types. The first type is insulin resistance, which 80% of women with PCOS have. Second type is inflammation, which almost all women with PCOS have, is chronic inflammation. It's always occurring. You could have multiple types as well. The third one is adrenal fatigue. That's basically you always having high cortisol, and then it's draining your adrenals. And then the fourth one is thyroid issues. So hypothyroid, that can be usually you can usually find that out with a doctor as well. But basically, those are the basically those are the 4 types. And if is anyone wondering which type you are, we actually have a very fun interactive quiz. It takes like 1 minute. You answer some questions, and then at the end of it, you'll basically get your answer. Of course, it's
just for fun. It's not a diagnosis.
It's not a diagnosis, but it can kind of help you find the next steps, and we can definitely provide you a link if you want to include
Oh, yeah,
it for your
no,
audience.
definitely say it right here so
Yeah.
that people can know.
Or we can swipe up to
if you go to our Instagram, pcos.weightloss, and you go to the highlights section, you'll find something called quiz, and you can take that. But of course, we'll even put it in our bio when your episode is released too.
Yeah, of course.
So coming off that, once you know your type or types, then you really know where to really focus on. So let's say you have insulin resistance and inflammation. Those are the 2 most common types. Now you know exactly what to target. And how gluten and dairy-free really helps, and I'll let Talian continue at some point, but how gluten and dairy-free really helps is it really can help with targeting the inflammation and the insulin resistance, because dairy and gluten are two of the biggest food groups that can actually impact insulin levels and your inflammation. I can let Talian explain the dairy aspect for a second.
Well, dairy, so once you like get this knowledge, you'll never look at dairy the same way again. Dairy can...
Yeah, kind of like when you watch the like McDonald's documentary.
Yeah.
And you're like, never again.
And then you're like, never again. But then like 6 months passes and you're just like, but the Big Mac was good.
Actually, my son asked me if I wanted to finish his milk yesterday. I said, no, I don't drink that. So
nice.
I'm
taking
reformed.
a stand.
See, that's a win.
I'm reformed.
Look at you.
So tell us why we will never look at dairy again. Now we're all going to be disgusted. And I just ate an egg.
Dairy. You can eat eggs.
Eggs are great.
Good?
Eggs are great.
Dairy?
Yeah.
Is eggs dairy?
I think
No.
Poultry?
He said no.
No,
it's not.
We've
It's not.
Googled it so many times. It's not.
Well, I had cheese on it. So
Cheese.
I had
Okay.
cheese
Yeah,
on
cheese is
it.
dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dairy has insulin-like growth factor in it, and this can trigger high insulin levels. So when you eat dairy, it's almost like eating a carb, like it's going to spike the insulin hormone. And the insulin hormone is, so basically when that's high, we get insulin resistance eventually because our cells become numb to the constant spike of the hormone insulin. And when you have insulin resistance, it's easier to gain weight because your cells are numb and they're not burning up the sugar in your bloodstream, and that sugar is storing as fat. So basically, dairy can really contribute to that insulin resistance factor of PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
And the insulin-like growth factor in dairy can promote growth. So not only promote weight gain, but also cystic acne. A lot of times you see breakouts because of dairy.
Yeah.
And so that sebaceous gland, the oil gland next to the hair follicle, like in your face, that can get inflamed, that can overproduce oil because of the insulin-like growth factor, and then that can trigger the cystic acne that's like painful and you can't pop it, and it's just like sucks for like weeks.
Yeah.
And is a lot of that coming from the intake of dairy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be dairy. Also, dairy can trigger, it can make you feel addicted to cheese. So basically, there's a protein
cheese.
called casein. Yeah. And it converts to casomorphine. And when you can't detox that from your system, which some people can't detox it as well, it kind of plays on the opiate receptors of your brain and makes you feel addicted to cheese. So you
Kail's
literally
addicted to cheese.
Literally can't live without.
I'm literally addicted to cheese.
Yeah.
That has to be it.
Yeah, addicted to
I get
cheese.
it.
This girl. Yeah.
So the influence.
Is there like a fake cheese that I could eat?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
There are, but we don't like really recommend going for the dairy-free
But-
cheeses because they have a lot of trans fats and a lot of like processed stuff in there.
Processed colors and stuff.
Yeah.
But
So
it's
there's
a
not
good
like-
crutch to transition.
Yeah.
Like if
Okay.
you want pizza, you get the fake cheese,
It doesn't mean you can never have it. Like if you're gonna do pizza, feel free to like sprinkle the dairy-free cheese on there and enjoy the pizza.
Wait, so while we're on this topic, that's also a thing. So cutting something out and then trying to find a substitute, but then the substitute could be probably just as bad as what the original thing is. But then it's also like very expensive to eat well. And so I think a lot of people have struggles with that too, trying to like financially budget to make it work, to be like on these diets, as if it's not already hard enough like for the mental aspect of it and like the follow through, but then the financial aspect of it too.
It's hard. Where are you guys living?
Newport Beach,
Where's that?
Fancy California.
California.
Okay. I don't know how it is there, but I live in Delaware. Lindsay lives in Atlanta. We don't have like a Whole Foods. We don't have anything like that. I can't even think of. We have a Salad Works. So when I think of like trying to eat healthy, I don't even know if our chain restaurants, maybe they offer like gluten free or something.
They do. you can really, you'd be surprised, like potatoes, rice, gluten-free, you know? You don't have to buy the special expensive breads and milks and
Exactly.
stuff.
I was just going to say, like, we always suggest to focus on the naturally occurring foods that are already gluten dairy free. Like Tanya was saying, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, you know, quinoa, and then the meats like chicken, proteins, like all of those are already gluten dairy free. The only things that have gluten in it are the ones that are like, you know, the grains, like cereals and things that are already processed like pasta, things like that. Those aren't really natural. So that's why we just say start with the naturally occurring foods. And then if you want to like get like a gluten-free pasta here and there to add into your, you know, weekly routine, then that's great.
Do you think that you guys would be interested in maybe helping us do like a little one sheet for our listeners who want to incorporate this in their life on how to kind of get started and where to even go in the grocery store? Because I think that that's also an overwhelming thing, is going into the grocery store and not knowing what aisle to go on to find just like the simple things, you know? I think people just get so overwhelmed in it that they're just like, oh, if I don't have a list or if this isn't easy, then I'm just not going to do it. And so I think that would be so helpful.
Definitely.
I can walk you through the grocery
store. We should do like a 3-day list.
Yeah, that would be great.
Amazing.
Sure.
That would be awesome. Because I was honestly shocked by the number of listeners that have PCOS that listen to our podcast. And I think most of them were the ones that were not sure if they had it or they already had it and knew that my symptoms were PCOS. I was blown away. I couldn't, even now, like looking at some of the people who responded to like my little question box, like I was kind of surprised that many people wrote in. Actually, one of the newest questions I have is, what is the best dairy-free cheese? But to your point, I just don't know that I would even give the recommendation because it might just be as bad, equally bad, just different. Yeah. And so I don't know that I want to recommend it.
So I think by making this list, we could create, you know, just like a PCOS like awareness like highlight, like a little cheat sheet on where for people to even get started, because it's just it's a lot. It's
confusing.
Like I know Kail has literally just been like, I don't even know what to do. Like it's so overwhelming. There's so much information there. It's just like all this information thrown at you at one time, and then you're just supposed to change this lifestyle to be better.
Yeah. I read one thing that said for me to not have pork or beef at all.
I mean, there's so many things. You have to pick one. You have to try one and see if it works for you. So many things are out there. There's keto, there's vegan, there's random things like don't eat pork or beef. Like I eat pork and beef and my PCOS is reversed, you know? You have to find what works for you. So if it's starting with gluten-free, then you can start there and see how you feel and then slowly move forward.
Yeah. I think the important thing is to find a sustainable approach, because although you can reverse PCOS and put your symptoms into remission, there's no cure. Like you can't go on keto for 3 months and then everything is everything is cured for the rest of your life, because once you get off of keto, things are going to start coming back, you know? And that's why we don't really recommend going on keto, which is one of the most popular diets that are recommended.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. It's unsustainable because you can do it, sure, for 3 months, but can you do it?
Weight?
Can you do it for the rest of your life? Can you have less than 30 grams? I mean, maybe, but do you want to? No,
I don't want
to do
that.
That
was one thing.
It can be stressful for your cortisol levels too. It can make that aspect of PCOS worse. That goes into, again, the PCOS type Sirak explained. So if you have insulin resistance, keto can help. If you have adrenal fatigue and stress hormone dysregulation, keto is going to make it worse. So it's like not one size fits all.
Yeah.
For the listeners who have written in, a couple people have asked how they can be diagnosed. I know on your podcast we talked about just really being an advocate for yourself, but if you have any advice on people who think they have it and getting a doctor to listen to them, I'm sure our listeners would love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, to be diagnosed, you need 2 out of 3 symptoms. The first one is irregular periods. The second one is ovarian cysts. And the third one is hyperandrogenism, which basically is elevated male hormones where you get like facial hair or hair loss, acne, things like that. So 2 out of 3 would mean that you most likely have PCOS. But of course, going to a doctor and verifying will ensure that you have it. And then Ty, maybe you can explain how you can really advocate with the doctor to make sure that they're supporting you throughout this process.
Yeah, you can, if they insist that you don't have PCOS because they look at your blood work and they're like, you're within range, you're fine, but you have all these symptoms. You have the irregular periods, you have hyperandrogenism, facial hair, acne, weight gain, and they're still not listening to you. I mean, you can bring the Rotterdam criteria to them, which is the 2 out of the 3 criteria, and say, hey, I read this. This is how I feel. And if they still insist that you don't have it for some reason at this point, you're going to have to find a new doctor that's more informed about PCOS, because there's so many conditions out there for doctors to like learn about and keep up with. You can't expect them to be like specialists in everything. Sometimes you're going to come across a doctor who's not as open-minded, not following the current research, you know, and you don't want to fall victim to that. You have to advocate for your health, investigate your health, find someone who is listening to you and your symptoms and isn't just brushing you aside.
And we also recommend, like, if you're going to find a doctor, we recommend specifically finding a gynecologist, but also an endocrinologist, right? Did I say right?
Yes.
Yeah. And also, if you want to add in a third, a naturopathic doctor could also help. I know everyone, you know, financially or just are limited by sometimes with the doctors they can find, but if you can, going to a gynecologist as well as an endocrinologist can really help just see
what's going on inside.
I will say for my gynecologist, I told you guys last week, he didn't believe I had PCOS, but he still ordered the lab work to kind of give me peace of mind. And he was even surprised because he didn't think I had it. I don't know. I think I kind of respected it because it's like, okay, you know, I don't think you have it, but if it'll give you peace of mind, I'll order the lab work. And that's when my testosterone came back high. And he was like, okay, you're right. You were right. You knew.
And I think this just goes back in general, just being an advocate for yourself. You know, we talk about being an advocate for our children all the time. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but just in general in life, you know, as a parent, you advocate for your children. It should be the same thing. If you feel like something's going on and something isn't being addressed, to advocate for yourself.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, going there with a list of questions is really good too. Like, have your list of 5-10 questions that you're gonna ask the doctor, and if they're not gonna answer those questions, then get out and find another doctor. Because if your doctor can't even answer the questions you have and is not giving you the time of day, that's already a red flag. So, I think having the list is really good too.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I love that.
My gyno, I ask for an ultrasound once a year just to make sure there's no cysts, just to make sure everything's okay. I know not all gynos will do that, but maybe you can find one that will listen to you when you say, I want an ultrasound. Are you sure I don't have cysts? I want lab work. Are you sure my testosterone isn't high? Like, I have irregular periods. Let's figure out why.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I wanted to touch on that too for the listeners on our podcast. The heavy bleeding is considered irregular.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no reason for you to suffer with heavy bleeding and be called regular. That's crazy.
Like, because it was coming on at the same time every month for me, but just so abnormally heavy. Yeah. So abnormal, irregular. Because that was one thing that I wasn't sure about. It was like, well, my fertility doctor was basically saying, well, heavy bleeding is not irregular. Usually the irregular means not getting it at all. And I just didn't agree with that because I didn't feel like I should have to feel like changing my clothes 4 times a day is not normal.
I think that answers your question. If it's changing your lifestyle in that way that you're having to take a spare change of clothes because you know your period's coming, then that's probably a red flag that you need to address it.
Especially if it didn't happen before, right? I mean, if this wasn't happening to you 10 years ago and it's happening to you now, then that means that something is off. So then it is irregular.
Something changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I would love for you guys to just tell our listeners where to find you, your Instagram, any information you want to share.
And let's get up on like putting together something.
Yeah, like a little PCOS guide, and we can have your information in there too.
Yeah,
awesome.
Of course. But if the listeners want to find us, our Instagram page is at pcos.weightloss, and our podcast is A Cyster and Her Mister. Our episode with you is actually going to be released next Monday. So listeners, if you want to listen, you can go ahead and listen to our interview on Monday. And also our website, pcosweightloss.org. We have a membership as well as our course, which is a 4-week meal plan and workout plan. So if you're interested, you can always find our website there as well.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be creating a 3-day checklist.
Plan,
Yeah, that would be
checklist,
cool.
Something that they can download.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sister and her mister
Yeah.
are the jam.
You're
Love you
so
guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, guys, that's all we have time for today. That is the update and some helpful information on PCOS. And again, we will keep you guys updated on everything moving forward. If you guys have not followed us on @CoffeeConvos Podcast on Instagram, make sure you follow us over there. And if you have not subscribed to us, you can do that by searching the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone or any Apple device. Type in Coffee Convos, click subscribe, click the 5th star, and leave us a written review. You can also find us on Spotify or any other podcast app. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.